I'm Davis, this is Rachel, we have April and Ladd, and we're going to be asking the question, why do people homeschool? Why do they choose this as the way to educate or train their kids? So Rachel, what are some of the first thoughts that come to your mind when you think about that question? Why homeschool?
The first thing that comes to my mind is, why not? I think there's a lot of reasons to do this, but to me, why not? It's a great journey, it's a great adventure.
Yeah, it's almost a hard question to answer because that's exactly what I was thinking, like, why homeschool? Well, why not homeschool? Because you could probably give 100 reasons of why you should. I could give you like my top two really fast. The first one would be freedom, because as a mom, as a homeschool parent, you have the ability to choose your curriculum, your style. You can choose your learning environment. You get to choose your values that you want to impart to your kids. It's just so much freedom. When you have your kids in a school setting, whether it's public school or Christian school, you as a parent are actually doing a ton of work because you have to keep up with permission slips and field trips, and then you have to help them with their homework. Then you have to sign off on their homework. All these things for each kid in each different grade. It's so much more freeing when you can do multiple ages together, when you can set your own curriculum and you get to take trips on your own. You don't have to sign a permission slip. So freedom. And then I would say family time. You get to spend time as a family during the day, getting cozy on the couch, reading your books, you know. And what else would you say, babe?
Yeah, they did a National Center for Education Statistics did a poll of, you know, what's the top reasons to homeschool. The results were not shocking at all. I mean, up at the top, 80% said it's the school environment. Concerned about safety, concerned about, you know, drugs, negative peer pressure, not shocking. 74% said it was a desire for moral education. 58% said religious instruction. And then up at the top as well was an emphasis on, you know, family time. I think for me and our family, the number one reason to homeschool was a desire to train up our children in the Lord, in the discipline and knowledge of God, and be able to have the time and the ability to really pour into them with discipleship and training. And you're just not going to get that anywhere else quite like with homeschooling.
No, I mean, I was going to say, I hear people all the time say they're not homeschooling, right? Because they can just do all of that discipleship at home. They've got a great youth group and a great church. And I'm like, why would you endeavor to undo all of the mess that your kids encounter and are subjected to out there when you can stay home and just do that all the time as you rise up, as you go along the way, as you're just constantly pouring into them. All the family time you're describing, I mean, that's just been a glorious thing. But I don't think people think about those things. I think it's so outside of what everybody's always thought about. They're so hyper-focused on the academics. They don't think about the freedom or the family time or the discipleship opportunity because they're like, what about science? What about math? What about English? What about all these different things?
And yet the academics are a complete failure in public schools. I mean, we have to admit that.
The standard is very low.
They released a national report card, and every single state in the nation was failing, especially during the COVID era. It had actually seen a decrease in at least one of the scores.
Yeah, and so it's hard to say that academics are really that high of a priority, certainly in terms of the results. But if a family said, I really want to get back to the old days of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and make that important in my education, but then you homeschool, and the paradigm shifts, and you start thinking about, well, what's really important to our family? And for us, as we were kind of working through that and saying, well, what are our 3 R's or our top priorities? What do we want to accomplish now that we were homeschooling in the early 90s? And relationships was our number one priority. And we think of Deuteronomy 6 and training up our kids to love God when they rise up, when they lay down, when we're sitting at the table, when we're walking along the way, just all of life. And then you start thinking about all the extended relationships. So not just with God and falling in love with God, but having the parent relationship, the sibling relationship, and as you were saying, just the tight family that can happen when you're spending that much time together. A lot of people are overwhelmed that we're going to spend that much time together, but that ends up turning out to be one of the huge benefits and reasons to homeschool.
Yeah. I wouldn't take back any of those years. We did it for 26 years, and the kids are all gone and launched now, but those sweet times we had snuggled up on that sofa that you're getting to do now, all that time, all those books that we read, and even now when the kids come back home or I'm talking to somebody on the phone. One of our daughters is a nanny right now, and she was talking recently about one of the books that she was reading to the kids that she's nannying, and she goes, Mom, I remember when we read this book. So those are sweet memories that you're building in, and those relationships and talking to them about God. We want that as parents, and we put them on school buses and ship them off to somebody else all day, and we have the opportunity to keep them home.
I can't imagine, I mean, we have 7 sons. I can't imagine my sons especially sitting in a classroom of all the same ages in front of either a screen or at a desk all day. They would be miserable. And while we do have obviously classroom time, and we do have plenty of time devoted to academics, we also have plenty of time where there's activities and going outside in nature. And it's a very organic day versus a very rigidly structured day that's all standardized.
Oh yeah, I remember how we got started. The super short version, our son was in public school for 13 days. And on that last day, I arranged to take a Friday off and spend the day in my son's classroom. By that afternoon, I brought him home. At that time, on that Friday, we didn't know what we were going to do on Monday. Turned out we started homeschooling. But the reason I pulled him out was my son was going to die a slow, cruel, horrible death because of the boredom that I was just witnessing firsthand. That it wasn't that anything bad was happening, but nothing good was happening.
It sucks away their creativity and their imagination, when they're stuck in a box. It's this one classroom in this one desk, and they can't do anything on their own. They can't explore the topics that they want to explore. So there's a lot to be said for tailoring it to your child, and that's one of the blessings. And I think, to me, the biggest reason is you can't put a price on your kids' souls. They are eternal, they are everlasting souls, and so no matter what education you're choosing, you have to go in it with that mindset. I want the best, because they get one childhood, they get one shot at this, and they're gonna live forever, in eternity. And so when you go at it with that mindset, and I know we live in a fallen world, we live in a world of brokenness and divorce and poverty and physical pain and suffering, death, and all of this, so I know what's best and then what's feasible is maybe different for every family, but if you can at all make it work, I could almost guarantee that homeschooling is going to be the best in most situations if you can possibly make it work. And so that's kind of where we're coming at it, is what do we want for our family? What do we think is the most value for their souls? And then we're going to do it. We're going to try to do this homeschooling thing.
And related to that, when God blesses you with children, when you get that children are actually a blessing from the hand of God, that He's giving these children to you for a period of time. What an honor to take care of them and to raise them and to nurture their souls and their whole beings, to seek out what God has planned for this person, this unique person, just to take that seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as Christians, we don't really take that seriously.
It's
We've gotten
very sobering.
away. It is very sobering that it's a trust.
Yeah.
And what am I going to do with this trust? Am I really going to send it away to somebody else that I really don't know? I really don't know their worldview. I really don't know what their priorities are. Am I really going to make that gamble? Or am I going to step out in faith? Not because I've got it all figured out, but because I trust God. And because God sent me this child, He's entrusting me with this child. Am I going to trust Him with this child and step out in faith and homeschool him? Keep him at home with me.
We've said so many times before, homeschooling's not going to save your child.
No.
Only Jesus Christ can do that.
Right.
What homeschooling does is it gives you time as a parent to fulfill your mission and calling as a parent. To train up children in the Lord and to train them up for life,
Yes.
for all of life.
All of life.
And that involves all the different aspects of life they're going to encounter. Of course, it's academics. Of course, it can be sports and activities. but it's all of life, and that includes many different things that homeschooling allows you the time to do.
Well, right, and just thinking of the time that you invest in your kids, one reason to homeschool is it gives you 15,000 extra hours with each kid.
Yeah, it is.
Well, if you think about it that way, this investment that's eternal in the souls of our kids, their academic instruction, their spiritual development, their relationships with God and man, that's a great advantage to have all that extra time. And one of the issues that people have to ask themselves is, am I willing to be selfless enough to invest in the kids that God has entrusted to me?
And even that Bible verse you mentioned, where we're teaching them as we rise up, as we sit down, as we walk along the way, that sounds like pretty much all during the day. And you can't do that if your kids are gone 8 hours a day, sometimes even more. You can't do that if you only see them for dinner time and then rush out the door right after breakfast. So having that opportunity and that time to be with them, that is going to build stronger relationships with the children and the parents, and also among the siblings. And that's huge. The sibling, massive. When you are segregated into classrooms based on your age, you are not allowed to be with your brothers and sisters who are going to be your best friends in life. Do I hang out with anybody from my high school or my elementary? No. Who do I call and talk to? My parents and my siblings, you know? And now my in-laws and all those siblings. So this is your family, and these are going to be your very best friends. So to be fostering those relationships is a huge plus that I think a lot of people don't even factor in when they're considering homeschooling. They're thinking of, is this going to be better academically? Well, yes, it is, but it's also better in every other area.
Because of the relationships, because of the time, because of all those values that are happening in a homeschool setting, you can actually get to know your kids. You know what makes them tick, what they're interested in, what they're good at, and then you can customize their education to what God has called them to. And I have to admit, that's one of the absolute beauties that we've seen happening, is not only has our faith grown by walking by faith and doing this homeschool thing and relying on God for the results, but we've been able to tweak and customize the curriculum and the path, the course that each of our kids have taken, to certain foreign languages, to certain artistic skills, to certain writing skills. None of our kids had the exact same educational path because they're all different.
But you know, you touched on something that I think we need to dare to chase for just a second, and that is, why don't people do this? And I've talked about this when I do presentations at conferences. I think a lot of people know intuitively that to step out on this journey is to have to deal with your own junk. But what an opportunity, right, to deal with your own junk, because it is that opportunity to not just deal with your children and help them become who God's planned them to be, but to actually lean into the sanctification, this process of growing in Christ, of being transformed, of changing, of letting go of yourself, right? Which is the true freedom, right? But I think a lot of people go, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want, it's not, they say they don't want to be with their kids that much, but they probably just don't want to have to practice being selfless. They don't want to have to give things up. They want to do what they want to do. And
it's easy to be patient when there's nobody in the kitchen. And you can like bake, you know, but when you got somebody pulling on your clothes and screaming and like the toddler biting your ankles, you know, that's really where patience comes into play.
Really is.
And the good news is it's not 1970 where to homeschool would be to be truant. Homeschooling is now nearly 10% of all students currently out there in America. It's legal in all 50 states. And there's never been more resources available to the homeschooling parent. And that's one of the missions of Apologia, is to come alongside these homeschooling parents, offering them excellent curriculum, resources, encouragement to say, you can do this. You can persevere, and you will see, Lord willing, the rewards.
There's a community.
There's all this support, all these resources. You really can do this, and it's good for your kids. It's good for you. It's good for your family, and that's one of the reasons. After about 3 or 4 years, when we were committed to this for the long haul, and got through the rocky beginning, we continued because we saw that it was going to be really good for our marriage, for us as parents, and certainly for our kids academically, spiritually, socially, mentally, physically for boys, just being
Right.
able to
Yes.
walk around the couch as mom's reading, do Legos while mom's reading,
Right.
move.
Yeah, do something, not have to sit still all
Hang
the time.
upside down on the couch.
Exactly.
And just being in a classroom does not mean you're getting an education.
Right.
The classroom can be an environment for boredom, and it can be an incubator for just dullness towards learning.
It's anything but the natural learning environment.
Well, and that's something we haven't even touched on, is I think that if our educational system in America has done anything really, really well, they've killed and stolen the joy of learning from this whole generation.
Absolutely, we're all about the mystery, awe, and wonder of
Yes.
creation.
Yes.
We're trying to raise the next scientists and mathematicians
Right.
and the theologians who have a wonder and awe of the created order and understand that not everything's been discovered.
Exactly.
And we're at the tip of the iceberg here in terms of our knowledge and understanding of this wondrous world that we know God created.
And in light of who he is, right? All with the whole purpose of glorifying him.
Absolutely.
So, and I think that's what we've lost. And I think we see that in the mistrust that's generally in our society and our culture today, is because we've taken God out, right? And so everybody's just chasing after their own success and their own money. And we have an opportunity to raise a generation that is refocused on the glory of God. And it's going to pursue honoring him in word and deed because of the relationships that we build into, because we put value on him and on our family and our time together. I mean, that's the opportunity that we have.
Well, and you touched on this in terms of what are some key measures of success.
Yeah.
When you homeschool, you can actually teach your kids and instill a love of reading and a love of learning. In many ways, that's success. Because then you can be a lifelong learner. You can pursue God with all your heart into adulthood, into old age, because you like learning and you like discovering all that is created around us, all the books that are good, and you can discern what's wise and what's foolish to live a good life.
Yeah.
And we're raising human beings here, not specialized robots. I love the fact that my son can go from playing Mozart to help me fixing a plumbing leak, to see the wonders in physics, and then go outside and help us on the farm. And learning all about the different aspects of life is so important. That the classroom just can't capture.
Can't replicate.
It really
And it's
can't.
not even trying to. It's trying to do something totally different. It's a production.
It wasn't designed for it.
It works for the Model T, like the assembly line production. It does not work for kids. And the more we realize this is not the way it's supposed to be, then we can step back and say, well, then how is it supposed to be? What would be the very best environment to foster education, to foster the love of learning, to foster just a joy in life?
Yeah.
And we know the public school is not it. And really, even the Christian schools are not it. They're trying. They're a step up most of the time. I can't speak for all of them. But it's not the same as being home on the couch in the living room with your mom or your dad reading you a story. And it's like you're saying, those books that they have from childhood, they might not see them for 15 years. And then when they see them, it's like an old friend. I've seen that with my childhood. Like, I will pick up a book that my mom read to me when I was little. Those are the things you remember as a kid. I do not remember worksheets that I did. I remember I had a couple of teachers that read out loud at the end of the school day, boxcar children, when I was a kid. And I remember my mom reading out loud to me. And I will pick up one of those books off my shelf and immediately have these subconscious memories that I didn't even know I had. And so my older kids are now able to do that when they see me reading picture books with the younger kids. They're like, oh, this was my favorite, And it's so sweet. Those types of things, you can't put a price tag on that. And that's part of an education, but it's way bigger. It's more the whole child. So.
Now, if you start homeschooling, does that mean you're going to have perfect children and a perfect life? Absolutely not. We're under no illusion. In this fallen world, we're fallen people.
Yes. When we get on the couch with our cups of tea, because I like to have the cozy atmosphere, it's 100% chance somebody is going to spill the tea.
Oh, yeah.
And 100% chance somebody's going to get the biggest brownie, and then somebody else is going to cry about it, and then someone else, probably the 2-year-old.
reaction.
Yeah. She's going to steal somebody's food, and then someone else, probably a 2-year-old again, is going to pitch a fit and have to end up in her crib. You know, there's going to be conflict, and there's going to be tears. There's going to be relational difficulty. There's going to be somebody whacking somebody, you know, in the head with a pillow, and then they break a lamp. Fortunately, we have not lost any of my antique lamps yet. But it's not. We break something almost every day. Yeah. By we, I mean the kids. But it's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be like the Instagram picture is like a still shot.
It's overrated.
But it is still there. The relationships are so deep and so real, and it's so worth all the hard times and all the spilled tea, you know, on the couch. It's worth the investment. So it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be messy, but it's beautiful.
Well, these are just some of the reasons to homeschool. As April said at the beginning, we could list 100 more, but these are just some to get you a good sense of why people choose to homeschool.